Thanks for joining us for the Omnicast. I'm your host, Tyler Jacobson with omniphonic.com. Joining us today is Susan Barry with Hive Marketing. Say hi, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Barry with Hive Marketing.
Tell us all about what you do, Susan.
Well, I help hotels with top-line revenue. So I work on sales, marketing, and revenue strategy problems for hotels.
Excellent. And you are all the way in Atlanta, Georgia, far distance from me here in Denver, Colorado.
Yes, I am. And it is 1 million degrees in Atlanta today. Extremely hot.
So Susan and I had actually done this episode previously, and a technical difficulty made it impossible to air. But you started out that episode talking about how you were kicked out of the country of Canada.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Well, this doesn't improve my online reputation necessarily, but yes, I was deported from our friendly neighbors to the north. I was working on a project in Montreal. I had crossed the border multiple times while on this project, and I thought I had everything right. I didn't think I needed anything special. I was like announcing myself to the agents or whatever, and they were like, cool, come on in. And then instead of flying out of Montreal, I flew through Toronto. And the people in Toronto were not having me. So they told me to turn around and get back on a plane and go home to Atlanta. However, all of my belongings were in the city of Montreal.
So the most Canadian deportation ever happens right now.
So I may or may not have started to cry a small amount. And I was like, dude, all my belongings are in a hotel room in Montreal. I mean, I was there for months. So I had like bags of stuff, like so much stuff. And so she was like, okay, well, you can go on to Montreal, but you must leave the country within 48 hours. So I packed up all my stuff, and I came back to Atlanta 2 days before our national tragedy, the election of 2016.
So I just love that. You got to get out of this country. Okay, but all my stuff's here. Okay, you can have 2 more days, but then you really got to get out. It's just very Canadian.
Yes, they're so nice. And what I also think is funny is that, I mean, it was like pants and jackets. It's not like I had a diamond vault in my hotel room. You know what I mean? Like, could I have left that stuff behind? Of course I could have. I don't know. The whole thing was nonsense. But I will say that I'm probably the only person you've ever met who's ever been deported from Canada.
I like to think that's true. Yeah. This segues somehow, I guess, into our topic of the day. I don't know how it segues.
I certainly hope so.
Canada has quite the reputation for politeness, right?
They do. Their online reputation is stellar when it comes to being super friendly.
So, Susan, what prompted you to say, hey, we should do a show on online reputation? Is there something that triggered that?
Yes. It has to do with the website TripAdvisor. So as I mentioned at the top, I work with hotels. And one of the areas that I work with hotels is improving their TripAdvisor scores. And I don't mean improving their TripAdvisor scores by like hiring 95 grandmas in the Midwest to post fake reviews or, do anything like that. I mean by putting programs in place in their hotel and putting programs in place to respond well to reviews.
Okay. So how do people screw up their online reputation?
Well,
Not people. I'm sorry. Businesses. How do businesses screw up their online reputation?
Businesses are just people writ large, right? So yes. There are a couple things that folks do. The first is that they ignore their online reputation completely. So there are lots of people who have this sort of notion that Yelp reviews or TripAdvisor reviews or wherever you see reviews online are filled with either fake reviews or just angry people that we shouldn't have to pay attention to because they're crazy. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm about to choke.
Expand. Okay.
Please hold. So, first of all, there's all kinds of research that shows that most reviews online aren't fake. In fact, TripAdvisor says that 80% or more of the reviews hotels get on their site are positive. So they're either getting 4 or 5-star reviews. So the idea that people only jump on a website to write a review when they're angry is maybe not so true. I know you had some thoughts about that. You know, a lot of times people do it when they're mad. And I think you told me before that you only write reviews when you're mad. Is that right?
Not exclusively, but I'd say 80% of the ones I write are when I'm pissed, and 20% are when I'm happy. Yeah.
And tell me what's your goal when you're writing a review when you're upset?
Truthfully, it's not to hurt the business. It is almost to compel the business to respond and compel them to start addressing whatever issue I had. And if they don't address it, then their reputation is damaged because they have a low star rating. If they do address it and they are trying to come to the table and say, listen, you shouldn't have this experience, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll change my review, but a lot of the times it's just to compel them to take some action that I probably wasn't able to get otherwise.
Yeah, to make it right.
Right.
And so that's one of my biggest pieces of advice when people are writing responses to reviews. So we talked about the biggest mistake you can make is ignoring them. I think we can all agree that that's absolutely correct. The second biggest mistake is if you're reading the reviews, you also need to be responding to them. So should you,
as a business owner, not as a customer,
not as a fellow reviewer, right?
Yes.
Not you, yes. Tyler, the universal you of the business world. So there are a couple of reasons to respond. First, to your point, to make it right, to show the person who's complaining about something that you take it seriously and you want to make things better. But the other reason to respond is because it's free marketing. So there have been all these studies about how people use reviews online. There are some estimates, which I kind of think maybe overestimates, but we'll see, that 83% of people read reviews before they make a purchase online. I am not one of those people, so that's why I'm a little doubtful of that stat, but still, more than half.
Wait, you don't read reviews before you make a purchase online?
Not usually.
Oh
Isn't that
God.
weird?
I want to dig into like how you buy then.
I know. Well, because I only buy things online that I've bought in the real world.
Really?
I think that might not be right. And I might be lying about the reviews a little bit.
I want to do a whole episode just on how you purchase things.
In a totally random way. At a thrift store or at Target. That's it. That's all I buy. And then once I...
What about a plumber?
I never buy that kind of stuff. I would look at reviews for that though. I see your point, but I would do it differently. I would ask people in my network before I like just randomly picked somebody online.
I get that, but you got like 4 recommendations from your friends, from people you trust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, actually, I don't mean to take you out of your moment.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do you know where you were going with that? Can you keep that?
Yeah.
Put a pin in that. Because when you go and you look up that plumber online, even if you've already resolved to get them, if you look them up and they've got a 2-star rating, you're not going to choose that plumber. And that can show up in the search engine results without you ever going to Yelp, without you ever going to any of these review sites. Those star ratings can show up in those search results just when you're looking for a phone number. So even though you're not actually leveraging the review in an active way, passively, it's going to help determine whether you make that call or not.
That's a very good point. It's sort of a subtle influence. Now, I understand that I'm unusual. For example, my husband reads reviews, like if he wants to buy anything on Amazon, he buys a lot of, he's an artist, as you know, and he buys a lot of his equipment and supplies online. And he reads tons and tons and tons of reviews and also asks around and goes to artist forums and does all kinds of stuff before he pulls the trigger on a purchase. I'm just not like that because I'm very decisive, and I'm also not ever going to make a big enough purchase that it will hurt.
You don't have children.
Correct. And I buy almost everything also at the thrift store. That's so weird. This episode is turning into a disaster of me admitting everything weird about myself. I'm about to tell you something else too, which I don't think you know. So have you ever done ChaCha?
No. What's ChaCha?
You know what it is. It's when you have 2 minutes and 22 seconds to go through 22 slides or something like that.
I presented at one of them. Yeah.
Okay, so you know it's super hard, right?
I've heard it, Pitaka. I don't know.
That's probably better. I think Pitaka sounds funny. So I did a Pitaka presentation on online reputation a few years ago, and it started. What?
Explain what ChaCha is. It's 2 minutes and 22 seconds to do what, 10 slides?
I don't remember.
It's a very limited presentation with a lot of slides to get you through this whatever point you're trying to make.
Yes, and it's a really great way to see a presentation because people have to be very concise and get to the point. And people who are good at it are fascinating because they're like timed perfectly, slide after slide after slide. I will say that mine was pretty good, but I think that most of the compliments I got were based on the fact that I started it with a screen grab of my mugshot as it appeared in search results when I looked for my name.
Ooh.
Yes, because I went to the big house, not for anything cool. I wish it was like a protest or something like that, but it was for a traffic violation, and I was a dumbass. And my mugshot was very hot, by the way. But so if you Googled my name, remember when all those mugshot sites were such a big thing? That would come up. And like if you click the image search, my mugshot from the age of, I think I was 22 when it happened, was like one of the top 10 results. So the point of having that there was to make the point that you have to pay attention to what's happening about you online. We've already covered that. So I'm going to come back to responding to reviews. So we know we have to respond to reviews because we want to make it right. We also want to respond to reviews because there is free marketing that happens in that space below every review that your business gets. So as a business owner, depending on the site, you're allowed to go in and write a response. We talked about the fact that everybody but me reads reviews before they buy something online. And I know that this is accurate, that between 6 and 10 reviews get read for every hotel room that's booked. So consumers who are traveling will read between 6 and 10 reviews of hotels before they make a selection. So if you run or own a hotel and you've got review after review after review, people are going to look at those, right? Because before they come to your city or your destination, they're looking at between 6 and 10. So every time you get a review, if you write a response, it gives you the opportunity to market to that future guest. So you're not just talking to the person who wrote the review, you're talking to the person who hasn't made a decision yet. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then there was also another marketing aspect that you hit last time we did this, which was in the review, you can also talk about, you can highlight some of the more special things about either your property, if you're a hotel, or maybe you could talk about a special if you offer a service, or if you're a restaurant, there can be, maybe you're a part of one of these, food week type of dining week type of experiences.
100%. That's exactly what I mean by using it as sort of a mini commercial to a future guest. So you want to thank the person who wrote the review for taking the time. If there was a problem, you want to acknowledge and apologize for it. you want to present some sort of solution if there was a problem, and then you want to sell without selling. And what I mean by that is, hey, thanks for coming. Next time, or in March, we've got a big jazz festival. If you're planning to come back to our city, that would be a great time to visit. That sell without selling is the thing that you most often see people not consider or make use of. And I mean, that's so many eyeballs every time somebody is researching a hotel or whatever the thing is that they're doing.
Right. So I think that also we touched a little bit on the search engine optimization side of this, which is your star reviews are actually showing up without people going to these review sites. And so that will influence people's decision making right there on that Google search results page. So that's one way that paying attention to your reviews can affect your search engine optimization efforts. But the other way too is local SEO, which is very important for those like near me searches. There is a fair amount of discussion right now saying that when you do respond to these views, you should also include local references. So like, hey, thanks for visiting our hotel in Southeast San Diego or something like that, or maybe our restaurant on Broadway in Alameda, something like that. That really that gives some local reference in your reply. That can actually help your local SEO too.
That's really good advice. I hadn't thought about that, but I'm going to add that to my sell without selling recommendations that I make for hotels for sure. We alluded to this earlier in the conversation, and I want to make sure that I don't forget to say it, which is if you've got a complaint or you've got an angry review, again, you want to thank them, acknowledge it, apologize, all that good stuff, produce some sort of solution. But sometimes the review can be either serious enough or emotional enough that you want to take it offline. So regardless of what the subject matter is, somebody could be exhibiting really heightened emotional response to it. And in that case, I think the very best advice is to say, thank you so much. I hate that this happened to you and I want to make it right. Please call me at 404-964-5765.
Is that the Hive Marketing number by chance?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if you want Hive Marketing, call that number. No, I agree with you. I actually think that anytime it's a negative review, you want to do that. You want to offline it as quickly as possible, with the intent of actually taking care of your customer, your former customer, because you don't want to get into a fight in public. And that's exactly what's happening here. And even if you go out there with the best of intentions, the person you're speaking to might be crazy, right? So they might just start a fight. They might be wrong. You might be right. You as a business owner, your emotions might get the best of you, and you might say something stupid that you don't want to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I always think it makes a lot of sense to try and get people to either call you or email you and not continue that discussion on the review site.
Yep. Remember that example of Amy's Bake? Is it Amy's Bake Shop?
A company.
Amy's Baking Company, ABC, that had a total meltdown implosion publicly on Facebook and ended up losing their business because they went so crazy and got boycotted and made fools of themselves. They were telling negative reviewers that God was on their side and all this stuff. It was glorious to watch in a sort of evil way, but perfect example of what not to do and why to take emotion out of the equation.
So how do you feel about those, and I always feel like as restaurant owners, but those ones who lose their mind about people coming in? You came in on Groupon, you were disrespectful to multiple members of our staff, you didn't tip. What do you think when they just go full fire on those people?
I mean, so then you get the Groupon offer and you're like, should I buy this Groupon? Let me check out the restaurant. And you see these crazy responses. You're not going to buy the Groupon, so it kills your entire marketing effort.
Yeah, but don't Groupon customers suck anyway?
No, they don't suck. They're frugal. And let me tell you, businesses would not continue to keep Groupon in business if it didn't work in certain circumstances.
All right. I'll have to trust you on that one.
I see the dismay in your face. I can tell you're not caring for this, but
because they are thrifty. They are your discount person. They're not going to come back at full price. They're not going to become a loyal customer. They're not going to tip what they should have tipped on a full bill.
That's probably true, but I think this is a good example of another point to make, which is that if you get a crazy seeming review, most people can read between the lines of crazy, or most people can read between the lines of cheap or, just a jerk or whatever it is. So like an example that I give of this is I've seen reviews for hotels where the entire review is about the weather. Like, we were really disappointed that it rained and it ruined our vacation. And so like, right, because the hotel ordered the incorrect weather for the week? No, dummies, that's not possible. My advice is to respond to those and take them as seriously as you possibly can. Something like, I know how frustrating it can be when the weather doesn't cooperate. Next time you come to town, if you encounter bad weather, call me and I'll give you some suggestions for what you can do instead. Or go see the concierge. They've got a list of rainy day activity, that kind of thing. Just take it seriously, because somebody else reading it's going to be like, wow, what a weirdo.
So there's 2 points that can be made in there. And one of them is that, yes, be reasonable. I don't know that you don't necessarily need to be coming off as inauthentic and like everything's awesome. Maybe it's not awesome. But again, if you act like you're a reasonable business owner and you understand the person's complaint and you want to rectify it, right? And so to that end as well, I think that also acknowledge that the person had a bad time or they had a bad experience.
Yes.
And were you in their shoes, you would have not wanted the weather to suck as well. It might be unreasonable for that person to be complaining about it and trying to hurt your business's reputation over it. But at the end of the day, we wouldn't have wanted the weather to be like that either, right?
Totally.
We wouldn't have wanted our housekeeper to have not addressed your room for 3 days either.
Right.
So I think acknowledging in a just very human way whatever somebody's issue is with your business and with their experience, I think it's okay to acknowledge that you yourself would not have found that to be acceptable either.
I think
it shouldn't go that way.
Taking it a step further beyond acknowledgement and saying you're sorry. There are so many, especially, I don't know if it's like this in other businesses, but in the hotel business, there are so many people who think if you use the word sorry or the word apologize, that you're instantly going to get sued. And it's the craziest thing I've ever heard. First of all, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my advice, but I've researched this so much and I can't find anything that says apologizing for a mistake means that you admit fault. Again, not a lawyer, so I could be totally wrong. And honestly, saying you're sorry is going to keep you out of a lawsuit. If you don't admit that they were right or that, you have some empathy for what they went through, the emotion just gets heightened and heightened and heightened. And then here comes a lawsuit potentially.
Yeah, because you're on the other side of the table. You're their enemy suddenly.
Exactly.
So it would be very interesting, I think, if anybody actually knows that. If anybody is a lawyer who's listening to this, I would love to know if saying sorry or, again, giving, I don't know, if it's a restaurant, giving a free meal or something because something bad happened, are you admitting liability at that point? Are you saying that this is our fault and whatever bad thing is we have opened the floodgates for you to come after us? But regardless, I think I like what you're saying, which is when you don't say sorry, now you are sitting across from that person. You are their opposite. You're not empathizing.
It's like in your partnership. If Sean and I get into an argument and he says, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. Oh my God, the fury ratchets up like 1,000,000% in terms of if he just said, I'm sorry. Even if he's not sorry, who cares? Just say you're sorry and move on. Then you take the sting out of it. You know?
All right. Yes, I do. I know how to say sorry just to calm the situation. Is there anything else that I guess here's one thing that we didn't really address. We sort of touched on it, which was around the ignoring it. But again, a lot of people ignore those reviews because they think that somebody's angry or because it's fake reviews. But that doesn't negate the fact that your reputation is still being built online and now you just don't have any part in it. Exactly. So the people who either are fake or are crazy and leaving bad reviews, they're the ones who are telling the story about your business.
That's precisely right. I could not say it better myself. And, there's a certain aspect of head in the sand. Like if we don't look at it, it's not really happening. I think everyone could think of an example in their lives where that has bitten them in the ass. Just pay attention to your reviews. If you've got 4 years worth of reviews that you've ignored, just start with today. Just look at today's reviews. Come up with some responses. Think about the situations that most often come up. So for example, in hotels, the things that most often come up are value for price paid. We felt like it was too expensive for what we got. Parking cost, quality of breakfast. Like those are some of the most common themes, whether it's a 5-star Four Seasons or a 1-star, motel by the side of the road. That's always the same thing that comes up. So think about the things that you most often get reviewed on when you're not in the heat of the moment. Spend a little time crafting some language about how you'll respond to that. So not when you're pissed because you know who that guest was and that they tried to chase the housekeeper around the bed or whatever, they were an ass. Don't do it then. Do it when you're calm, cool, and collected, and write some kind of response models. Notice that I said models and not templates, because you're not going to cut and paste the same language every single time you respond to a review about the same thing. You want to mix it up, vary the sentence structure, and of course, respond authentically to what you're reading. But come up with some idea of how you're going to handle that. When we talked about this before, I don't think I said this, but I think it's really important. There is often a sort of tendency to write in extremely formal and vague language, like, we were so disheartened to hear that your experience was less than ideal. If you wouldn't say those words to somebody who walked up to you and said, I hated this, here's why, don't put them in writing. It just makes you sound silly. Like you want to be who your business is in person, online. That language needs to feel the same way. And if your business is super formal and vague, then you can say, we were so disheartened to hear. Otherwise, never say that. I hate that this happened. I'm so disappointed. I'm mortified that you had a bad experience. Those are authentic statements, at least for my business.
Okay. Any other tips?
I do have more tips. I'm sorry. I'm full of tips on this one.
All right.
I think
that's why you're on the show, right?
I think if you are a business that has a consumer-facing online presence and you get a significant volume of reviews, that you need to have somebody in your business that owns it. So my example, of course, is a hotel, because that's the business I work in. So the operations leader or some leader in the hotel should own reviews. That doesn't mean she has to respond to every single review. It doesn't mean she has to solve every single problem, but she owns the culture of accepting guest feedback in that hotel. So that plays out by talking about your scores, going over the verbatim language that you're seeing over and over and over again, or trends that you're seeing on a regular basis. We had an example when we talked before, Tyler, about something that you did that made a big impact in your life, which something you did every single day.
Oh yes, stepped on a scale.
Yes, so you recorded your weight every day, and that helped you to lose weight. It's kind of a similar thing. If you're reading and talking about reviews on a regular basis with the entire team of the hotel, it becomes a measuring stick that impacts their behavior over and above you saying, you did this bad, do better, right?
Yes. And so, and with that same mentality, I would encourage any business owner to make it an initiative to have any customer-facing team members ask for reviews. Inherently, they're going to not want to ask for a review if they're not doing a very good job. So it will improve the customer experience in preparation for them asking for that review. They're not asking for a great review. They're not asking for a 5-star review. They're saying, hey, if you get a chance, please give us a review on Google or Yelp or wherever you actually need the attention paid.
Yes, I've heard some language that I think is really good on podcasts, where the podcaster says, we'd appreciate your honest review on iTunes. It's what helps us know what you like, or, you know, whatever it is. But they always say your honest review. I think that makes you feel more compelled to want to do it. And it makes me want to write a nice one, right? Because what a nice person, they're asking for an honest review. But then also, you know, maybe you're listening to a sample episode, you go back, you're deciding to subscribe. You're like, oh, look at all these great reviews. And he obviously wants honest reviews. So this must be the best podcast ever.
All right, good point. To that end, we'd appreciate your honest review of the Omnicast on iTunes. It'll help us get more subscribers and also understand what you like as a listener. Susan, where can people find you?
Well, my website is hive-marketing.com. And I have an ebook about online reputation for hotels called Good Buzz that you can find in my shop.
All right, cool. And I can be found at omniphonic.com, and that's with an F, OMNIFONIC.com. And we will see you next time.